everybody. So we're going to work on lesson 5. Ignore that class bell there. This is on page 11 in your packet. I'm probably going to break it up into 2 videos so it's not as long. It might be helpful, if you open this up in Cami, to zoom in a little bit so that way it's easier to write in the small space. Like maybe zoom into 150 or so that way you can write a little bit easier. We're going to get into drawing lines and things also. So there's different functions here. Okay, just the regular drawing. So we'll get into that. I don't use Cami a lot, but you might. The nice part about this is using a line as well, but we'll talk about that later on. So I'm just going to use the drawing tool for now. But again, it is helpful if you are writing right in your packet right on the Chromebook to zoom in when you're filling things out. Okay, so this is Unit 5. Remember, there's a little bit of a typo here. This was Unit 3 last year, but we're into the good stuff now. We're going to talk about graphing functions. We've learned a lot of terminology, max and min, we'll talk about again today, domain and range and mapping diagrams and tables and inputs and outputs. Well, let's get into using these things. So just a quick review. We talked a little bit about this last class. Maximum or max is the very top of your graph, and the minimum or min is the very bottom of your graph. All right, the very bottom point. So this is going to be your highest or largest output, and this is going to be your smallest output or lowest, or y value. All right, because remember output is your y value. All right, easier to see when we look at it though. So once again, they gave us a function called it f of x. All right, didn't give us an equation or anything yet, just gave us this picture. So everything that we do is going to be based on this picture. So you can see it starts here, goes all the way down and around, and then stops up here. All right, if there were arrows, it would continue on forever, but we'll get into that next unit. So it says find the value of each of the following. We talked about this last class. Remember, if you have the point x, y in function notation, that's going to be written like this. All right, so if I give you the number inside, that's your x value. And then you're looking for the y value that goes along with it. So find x on the 4 on the x, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then follow it till you hit your graph. That's the point 4, 1. So f of 4 equals 1. F of negative 1, find negative 1, follow it up or down till you hit the graph. Right there, that's the point negative 1, 2, 6. So f of negative 1 equals 6. All right, if I go this way, it says for what values of x does the function equal negative 2? So you're trying to figure out what x values have a y value. Oops, didn't want to do that. A y value of negative 2. So the easiest way is to illustrate it on the graph. It's basically, think of it like a height of negative 2. Negative 2, anything that has a spot below, 2 places below your x-axis. So here's 1, and here's 1. This is the point 1, negative 2, and 3, negative 2. So 1 and negative 3 would give you a negative 2 for an output. All right, and the last new thing today, well, in the beginning, the min and the max. The min, remember, is the very bottom, and the max is the very top. Well, you can see this thing does not drop below here. This is your min. I'm going to switch colors here. So down here is the very... Oh, are we going to work or what? Oh, whatever. There we go. So here's your min down here. It's kind of hard to see. And here's your very max up here. It's not because it's the top of the grid, it's because it's the very top of your function. So those values are what? The very top has a height of 6, and it doesn't go below -3. So your min is -3, and your max is 6. Okay, so once again, real quick, the max is the top, and the min is the bottom. So the min is -3, and the max is 6. So that's a little review from last lesson. We'll see more of that coming up later on in the unit. But this is the main part of today's lesson, how to graph functions. And we're going to be doing this quite a bit. If we do have a Regents, there's a lot of graphing questions on there. So you really need to get good with graphing and using that graphing calculator. So first of all, here's our function. Unlike the last one, they gave us an equation instead of a graph. All right, so function f basically does 2 times your input, 2 times x minus 1. So you can do that by hand if you'd like, but I really want you to start using the graphing calculator. So basically, for this, x is your input, so instead of 2 times x, we're going to do 2 times -1 minus 1. That would be -2 minus 1, which is -3. All right, you could use your calculator for that. Just hit second mode to get back to the main screen. 2 times -1 minus 1. -3. Now, it's easy to mix up your signs and get the wrong thing. So what I would suggest is using your graphing calculator. But if you don't have one, you can still do it. So let's look at the next one. Your input 0. So instead of x, we're going to input 0. 2 times 0 minus 1. That's -1. 2 times 1 minus 1. 2 times 2 minus 1. 2 times 3 minus 1. All right, each time you're taking out the x and replacing it with whatever your input value is. All right, so 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 minus 1 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6, 6 minus 1 is 5. All right. And you have a series of points, and it is a function. Each x only goes to 1y. Now let me show you something really cool, and this is how you're going to be graphing from now on. Instead of going through and typing each one in and trying to figure it out and worrying about negatives, every single function is the same as y equals. So instead of f of x equals, I'm going to do y equals. And I put a box around that because that's that very top button. So hit clear, and we're going to type in 2x, which is next to the green button, minus 1. Not any of these values in the table. We'll get those from the table. So you just type this in. Now when I look at my table, second graph, because table's up here in blue, find -1. Right here, -1 is -3. Oh, same thing. 0 is -1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 5. It's all those points without having to go through and do all the work. And then the other cool thing, not only does it give you the answers, but if you hit graph, it shows you what your graph's going to look like. Well, we're only graphing a few points, so ours won't be that large, but we will connect the dots because I'm not just giving you points, I gave you a whole equation. But you can at least see the direction your line should be going. Okay, so again, you go to y equals, and then you hit second graph to get to your table and to get to the actual graph so you can see what it's going to look like. Hit graph. So the first point, -1, -3, back 1, down 3. 0, -1, remember that's in the y position, so it should be on the y-axis. So you don't go from side to side, just down 1. And another cool thing about having it in the graphing calculator, if you don't know if it should go here or here, do you see anything on their graph? No. So there shouldn't be anything on your graph there either. All right, 0, -1's right there. It should be following the same path. 1, 1, so over 1, up 1. 2, 3, over 2, up 3. And then 3, 5, over 3, up 5. And each of these functions is going to form some kind of pattern. All right, let's try out the line here. I guess that was under shapes. I'm going to put it at one endpoint and just drag it up to this one. There's our line. We're not going to have it go beyond that, so we're just going to have it go from the first point to this last point. All right, and the last thing that we need to do is put the name of the function on there. So this is f of x. We're going to label it, and its equation is 2x minus 1. Okay, and again, take a look at your graph. It looks the same. A little different just because it's zoomed in, but it's the same. All right, and this forms a straight line, so this type of function is linear. Linear has the word line in it. That's a linear function. And we'll look more at that next chapter. All right, so again, how to graph a function using the calculator. Hit y equals, put in your equation. To look at the graph, hit graph. To look at the table, you're going to hit second graph and find those values that we needed. All right, so for this next one, and this is where I'm going to split up the video. Here's your new equation, y equals parentheses x minus 1 in parentheses squared minus 4. Now, if you notice, I didn't give you the x values, but I gave you the interval. These are the x values that I want you to use. I want you to use -1 through 4. So -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I want you to take a minute and go to y equals and put this equation into your calculator. Remember, you should have this graphing calculator. If you don't, you can get it from my helpful info folder. And if you right-click on it, you can pin it so it's there all the time. All right, I'm actually going to switch to the next video. Before you turn that video on, I want you to take a minute and see if you can figure out this table. We'll see you in a couple minutes.